Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede, and this week I spoke to the two candidates in the Democratic primary for Congressional District 27, Annette Taddeo and Ken Russell. The winner will take on Republican Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar. We begin with Ken Russell, the Miami City Commissioner.
Well, we are on full cylinders right now. The campaign, as any scrappy underdog campaign would be, is out there hitting the bricks, knocking doors, and doing everything we can to connect with voters.
So why do you consider yourself the underdog in this race?
Well, it seems that the party has already made a decision from Washington on down to put their finger on the scale in this race. Annette has been anointed by Nancy Pelosi and the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. I reached out to them before I jumped into this campaign, and I knew that there was a clear path to the general. And it was unfortunate when Annette jumped into the race, but that's democracy. The part that's unfortunate is that the Democratic Party has felt the need to put their thumb on the scale even before our primary started, not to let things shake out a little and see what the voters are looking for. And it's not often that Washington gets it right when they try to interfere with Florida. I think we should leave it up to the voters.
Well, you just said something, and I know this is an area that you want to talk a little bit about. We'll get to some issues in a second, but what does it take for a Democrat to win in Florida? Because Democrats haven't been doing a lot of winning in Florida as of late.
Well, we need fresh ideas and good candidates that connect with voters. The hyper-partisanship will not be won by Democrats in South Florida. And the mistake I believe they're making in recruiting Annette Taddeo for this seat is that they're trying to simulate or emulate Maria Elvira Salazar as close as they can, both in profile and position. And so you'll see the rhetoric of the positions when it comes to international policy being very similar. The classic paradigm of a South Florida politician yelling at dictators who have passed away long ago and other regimes that need to be either influenced or toppled. Rather than coming up with solutions, building a coalition of countries in this hemisphere that are democratic thinking for free press and free elections and free economies, it's simply sitting back and doing the same old line that the Republicans do. We don't need Maria Elvira light. We need a fresh perspective and a relatable candidate with good solutions.
I think the reason why Democrats have been looking for someone who would be tough on dictators is that Democrats in the last couple election cycles have been accused of being socialist, essentially being someone who caters to far-off dictators. And so therefore the Democrats have decided they need a candidate who stands up to Maduro, who stands up to the regime in Cuba, who stands up to fascist or dictatorial governments anywhere in Latin America or around the world. Do you not find, for instance, Maduro to be a bad actor, what goes on in Cuba to be bad? Wouldn't you want to denounce that as well?
I've been unequivocal on the record, both in English and Spanish, that I detest socialism, detest communism, and I'm absolutely against the regimes that are really hurting these countries and their people. I've worked in Venezuela back in the early 90s, and I remember what a beautiful country and people it is. My father was kicked out of Cuba as an American, working there for 10 years before the Castro regime came in. It's not enough just to say you're against socialism. You have to emulate what it means to be from a democratic society with a capitalistic economy, and I'm a part of that. I'm a small business owner. I was not of the political sphere that just talks rhetoric. I was out working in the community, taking care of my family, building my business. But really, it's less about how much you hate the regimes. It's about what is your solution. And I've shown through my track record over the last 7 years at the City of Miami Commission, I'm a very solution-oriented, problem-solving person. I've passed more legislation than everyone in my race combined in the primary in general. But the word socialist has lost its meaning. Maria Elvira Salazar is getting primaried from the right, and they're calling her a socialist. So, you can only run from this so much or push against it so much. You have to run a great campaign that connects with people. And it's about diversity, not about being Hispanic.
You talk about being solutions-oriented. Give me an idea of some of the ideas that you have that you think separate you from Annette Taddeo, some of the solutions that you would want to bring forward if you were the next congressional representative from South Florida.
Well, the big difference between Senator Taddeo and myself, when campaigning, you'll never hear me say, I believe in this or I'll fight for this. You'll hear me say, I've accomplished this. And those are 3 words she cannot say. So even though she'll say, I've been in the minority, At the City of Miami Commission, which is very rough and tumble, it's gerrymandered to always have Democrats in the minority on that position. Yet I've passed dozens and dozens of legislation items, ordinances, resolutions, the strongest water quality ordinances in the state, the strongest and most innovative affordable housing solutions in the state, the strongest climate change legislation to actually improve our city and hold polluters accountable in the entire state. And not only did I write this legislation, sponsor it, but find the politics on a very difficult dais to get it passed. These are things that the senator cannot say. I was working even before in elected office to try and solve problems in my community. I was just a small business owner upset about a contaminated park. You don't have to hold the office to get things done. You don't have to be in the majority to get things done. You just have to have a willingness to understand the politics, to figure out your problems and bring everyone together.
So what do you think you would be able to accomplish in Washington?
So that's another part of my campaign. It's not about really falling into the hyper-partisan differences that we have. It's really about what South Florida needs. And as a city commissioner, for example, passing the Miami Forever bond, $400 million for storm surge, sea level rise, affordable housing, took me 3 years to get it on the ballot and pass it. This created all this money with no increase in taxes and no help from the federal government. I want to be the congressional representative I wish I'd had for the last 7 years to get big things done as a community. Those layers of governments don't communicate, and I want to do that for all of the cities in our district.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the issues, because I don't know that you and Senator Taddeo differ a lot. Do you favor an assault weapons ban?
Absolutely. I do. I believe we need gun reform. It's very important. There's a lot of confusion over Second Amendment rights and taking of our guns. In fact, I just conducted a buyback in the city of Miami where we're actually sending guns to Ukraine, our new sister city, to help them. And this was just another incentive to get people involved. It's been very successful. But I do believe we need federal legislation to ensure the safety of our kids 100%.
Reproductive rights. Let's talk about reproductive rights when it comes to women. Obviously, Roe v. Wade has now been overturned. Congress has the opportunity to solidify that, codify that now in law, the woman's right to control over her own body. Tell me what you would do and where you draw any lines, if any, when it comes to abortion.
100% reproductive rights should be codified at the federal level. It should not be up to state to make these decisions. Some things states should have rights. Some things should be American values that are enshrined within our laws. And the only way to get that when the Supreme Court is failing us is to bring them in law. So we're counting on Congress to do that and for a president to sign it into law. For me, yes, I'm 100% in favor of choice, reproductive rights. It's an intersectional issue, just not only women's rights, but health rights, abortion rights, and reproductive rights altogether in privacy.
Well, let me ask it this way then. Do you think there are any areas, any big issues where you and Senator Taddeo disagree? That you're
100%. And I believe this is someplace that I'll have a greater advantage than Senator Taddeo in. The general is the environment. I was a surfboard salesman before this, working 8 hours a day in the ocean, and water quality has been my biggest issue. And I've passed ordinances to regulate fertilizer, glyphosate, silting and runoff from development, shutting down construction sites. This has been the biggest thing for me, and I've actually joined the board of the Everglades Trust for the last few years. First, a sitting elected they've had on their board to help work on Lake Okeechobee and Everglades restoration issues, fighting with and working with the Army Corps to get it right. Now, Senator Taddeo has actually taken nearly $500,000 from the big sugar industry through dark money PACs and has voted twice against the interests of the Everglades Trust, once on Senate Bill 88 and once on 2508, which affected our ability to regulate water quality and air quality, respectively. These are huge differences, and what you'll find is that even Maria Elvira Salazar is stronger than Senator Taddeo on these issues, and that's a huge vulnerability. The Republicans should not be owning Democrats on the environment, but if Senator Taddeo goes in there, she'll be very vulnerable on that point. We need to end the sugar subsidy in the next farm bill. That's something I pledged to do that my competitors have not. Big Sugar has a stranglehold on the entire legislative process in Florida, and the only solution is that at the federal level, someone has to be willing to enforce the Clean Water Act, which has been ceded to the state.
I wanted to just touch on a subject you and I have discussed before, which is the stadium deal in the city of Miami, because there's been some new reporting that suggests that the Beckham Group, or the Moss Group, is trying to back away from some of their commitments when it comes to parkland and how much they'll contribute and whether they'll contribute to the cleanup. Did the city of Miami get lied to by the developers in this deal, and what guarantees are there that they're going to be on the hook for the cleanup of the land and that they are committed to finding those parcels around the city to be able to replace the parkland that they're taking?
That's a great question. The Beckham Group cannot back out of their obligations to the city. If they do so, they're in violation of the ballot language that was passed. And this was very important to me because I wasn't a champion for this issue. I was a gatekeeper to the city's land and interests, especially our environmental issues. So 4 years ago, when this went on the ballot, I made sure the ballot language was very, very carefully worded to protect us in terms of no net loss for parks, all the economic issues, all of the environmental cleanup. And the rubber met the road when the lease was written, and the lease was written in a very specific way. And that was the heated vote on the dais, where I was ready to walk away if I did not get every single one of the concessions I was requiring. And there's teeth behind every one.
When we come back, State Senator Annette Taddeo